Sure, it sounds like a trick question, but consider it from a historical perspective. Up until rather recently, white people enjoyed a position of definite privilege in this country. I can remember the white-only water fountain at a service station that was walking distance from our house. And I was 12 years old before my mother was allowed to vote in this country. This despite the fact that she had been paying taxes for as long as she had worked. Without question, whites still enjoy great privilege on the mere basis of being white. White males come out on top when all things are considered. They get the best rates on all types of loans, the best pay for all types of jobs, and they enjoy the greatest level of being considered innocent until proven guilty. One has to be at least a little impressed with what whites have created for themselves. As the late, great humanitarian and possibly the greatest orator for human rights ever produced by America, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "If it may be said of the slavery era, that the white man took the world and gave the Negro Jesus, then it may be said of the Reconstruction era, that the Southern aristocracy took the world and gave the poor white man Jim Crow, a psychological bird that told him that no matter how bad off he was, at least he was a white man, and better than the black man." And here is where we have to consider what whites have lost. Tops on this list are jobs. Millions of whites, blacks, Asians, and all other ethnic groups have lost their job over the last few years. Many whites, however, do not seem to understand the processes that have led to their unemployment. Or maybe, they just do not want to acknowledge the truth. It seems that they, that is unemployed and underemployed whites, believe that either illegal immigrants, non-white, especially black, so-called beneficiaries of affirmative action, the election of a black president, the presence of gay people in America, the B-1 visa workers, communism, socialism, a word being used more often than ever since Obama was elected, or some combination of the above, are the root cause of their waning prominence. In ever-increasing displays of selfish entitlement, they hold their so-called tea parties, and do a collective no fair, no fair. The president is supposed to be a white male, no fair, no fair. It is, for me, rather sad to behold. While I am a sympathetic person by nature, and can sympathize with any other human being, I find it no less than amazing how easily the bloviating talk show hosts can arouse the disenfranchised masses to anger, and give them an enemy to go after. Think Hitler here. These latter-day Tea Partners are, if nothing else, consistent. Consistently ignorant of history, consistently ignorant of how the Federal Reserve System affects them, and all but totally oblivious to the actual treatment of all so-called non-whites in this country, both during and post-slavery era. It seems, from all available evidence, that they still hearken to the whispering lies of a little black bird named Jim Crow. How many partygoers know that the original Tea Party participants disguised themselves as Native Americans before they dumped the King's Tea into Boston Harbor? One of many false flag operations committed to distract and confuse those who have no clue about history. It works every time. Currently, there is one of the most insidious false flag operations ever, being conducted by the purveyors of racial disharmony. Allow me to provide a few, possibly little-known facts. The South Carolina legislature passed a bill last November permitting the tax-free purchase of rifles, shotguns, and handguns during the three-day Thanksgiving weekend. This in a state that is awash in red ink, economically anemic, last or next to last in most important categories, and with a gallivanting governor, and frat boy lieutenant governor, bereft of any moral or adult leadership. The sales of firearms have set almost daily records since November 5, 2009. The day after Barack Obama was declared winner of the White House. And by the way, why is it called the White House? An overwhelming number of the new handgun buyers are white females. You would think they are preparing for an armed invasion by another country. Some woman named Bachmann, in the U.S. Congress, has actually called for a revolution. An extremely bloviating and ridiculously overpaid talk show host held his own State of the Union address to express his and his supporters' utter disdain and contempt for President Obama. Neo-Nazis recently placed literature in South Carolina neighborhoods with the warning, "Wake up white America, as if whites are in danger of extinction. The Nazi pamphlets warned of the flood of illegal immigrants, and the changing color of America. In this, they enjoy the company of Pat Buchanan. As a student of history, I view these recent events with an informed eye. And I am afraid that the Tea Party folks are falling for a rope-a-dope that could very well bring about a catastrophe that will bring the beautiful experiment called America to an unhappy end. In order to get your mind around what I say at this point, you would be well served to have read 3 books. The first is Black Like Me, by John Howard Griffin. The second is 100 Years of Lynching, by Ralph Ginzburg. The third book is The ISIS Papers, by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, which explains why the things in the first 2 books took place. All 3 of these books should be required reading for all middle school students. But then that would necessitate something that has never been a hallmark of those who practice, support, and work to maintain the cosmic calamity and global injustice known as white supremacy. And that something is honesty when dealing with those that they have labeled as non-white. As it turns out, when you have a white person of either sex make a baby with any person of color, you get a baby that may be very light-skinned but clearly not all the way white. Some whites, probably most of them, view this as an invitation to white genetic annihilation, as Dr. Welsing puts it. This biological reality is the reason behind the fact that every state in this union at one time or another had laws against miscegenation. In South Carolina, where the neo-Nazis as recently as this past 2009, 4th of July weekend, passed out their recruitment pamphlets, there was such a law banning interracial marriage on the books until 1998. It was put to a statewide referendum and removed from the books by a revealing 58% vote. I think it was native South Carolinian John C. Calhoun, or one of his like-minded contemporaries, who stated that the best way to ensure equality among whites is to maintain slavery. And just this past week some self-important South Carolinian bozo made racist remarks comparing First Lady Michelle Obama to an ape. Can you hear the little bird? Let's answer the question about whites receiving reparations. First, if any reparations are due, it should be firmly established who the offending party or parties are. In other words, just who is it that has caused whites to have to come down from their lofty perches, high above the swarming tides of non-whites, and more or less be forced to mingle with those of inferior racial heritage. And on an ostensibly equal footing no less. The horror, the horror. Put another way, for the benefit of the many who went to public schools, also known as government-controlled indoctrination centers, who is it that has allowed the borders to be flung wide open for thousands of illegals to enter each day, while at the same time forcing Americans to damn near strip naked to board an airplane? Who is it that has passed the laws that allow major corporations to close up shop in the good USA and move manufacturing to overseas locations to take advantage of slave labor, leaving millions in this country unemployed? For a clue here, think of who it was that sought slave labor to build this country. Reaching back in time, who was it that created the Federal Reserve System, which has caused this latest financial situation, leading to mass unemployment, foreclosures and, oh yeah, tea parties? I agree with the neo-Nazis when they say wake up white America, wake up and take action to prevent the relatively small numbers of your race from starting a big enough racial confrontation in this country that will give the real enemies of us all a reason to instill martial law in America. That is all that is required before they can take away your guns and bring us all, white, black, and everyone else, under the heels of those who are convinced that they are to the manner born. Is that really the kind of racial equality you want?